Welcome to Hoosier Homeland, an Indiana Department of Homeland Security podcast. This podcast discusses and explores the latest news and insights in emergency management and public safety. Join us as we engage with subject matter experts and bring you the latest on how IDHS is working to provide Hoosiers with a safe, secure, and resilient Indiana. Sit back, relax, and let's dive in. Today on the podcast, we have a very special guest joining us, Indiana's new Secretary of Public Safety and Executive Director of the Indiana Department of Homeland Security, Jennifer-Ruth Green. Secretary Green brings an incredible depth of leadership experience from her distinguished military career to her cybersecurity and law enforcement work. In this episode, we'll learn about her background, leadership philosophy, and vision for public safety in Indiana. So let's get started. Secretary Green, welcome to the Hoosier Homeland podcast.
Thanks. I'm so excited to be here.
You have an incredible, diverse background from military service to cybersecurity and leadership. Can you walk us through your journey and how these experiences have shaped your leadership approach?
That is a big question. Well, I know for sure that my leadership approach has been shaped by leaders who I would crawl over broken glass for, and really striving to identify the principles that fit. That was kind of my focal point over the last couple of years. What is it that makes a good leader? And so as far as, things that are on a resume, I started out by going to the Air Force Academy when I was 18 years old and graduated from there, started flying for the Air Force, and then transitioned to become a federal agent. And so after graduating from the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center in Georgia, then I did a year of probationary period, finished my credentials, had my credentials, but then finished my certification, and then went off to Baghdad. And really, that was where my first perception of what leadership looks like came from. I remember I was in a combat zone, and we were off our forward operating base. And I thought that my team and I were getting attacked. And I thought that it was going to be split-second decisions where I needed to help my teammates understand what they needed to do with immediacy so we could all come back alive. And executed that. And I think that was the moment where I realized, this is the burden of leadership. And so combat has shaped that. People have shaped that, and coming to this point now, where whether it was being certified as a cyber operations officer or transitioning into various leadership responsibilities across the military and in the civilian world, I think at the end of the day, my leadership experience is really shaped by the people and experiences, most specifically combat and the leaders that I've found that really invest in me and desire to help me grow.
If you had to distill your leadership philosophy into a few key principles, what would they be?
So I've spent some time thinking about this, and I have 5 leadership principles that really help me to just filter all of my decisions. So number 1 is represent Jesus Christ. And when I teach it, I say represent what matters most. And to me, that's the element where you're evaluating what is it that involves, whether it's the legacy or the people I love, whether it's my family name, whether it's, my role as a parent, my role as a sibling, whatever it may be, that you need to use to represent others and focus outside of yourself is important. So is this pleasing to the people that I represent or the institutions that I represent? And so representing what matters most is important. Number 2, be a servant leader. I think it's important to the element of a servant is very real, right? Like a servant who, if you think about it, if a king or a queen wants a glass of water and they bring them a glass of milk, they are not being a good servant. But a servant is somebody who understands the person that they're trying to serve. And so a servant leader is somebody who understands the people that they want to serve. So it's important for me to focus on who my people are and how I can serve them most effectively as I seek to lead them. So being a servant leader is important. Being a customized leader is important as well. And I think I have to lead other people differently, whether it's because they learn differently, or they respond to discipline, or they respond to affection differently. And by affection, I don't mean, necessarily putting your hands on someone, hugging someone if they're, but I just mean how they respond to encouragement. And so customizing that is important because I think of it like foreign languages, right? I can tell you that I appreciate you and respect you every day in French, but if you don't speak French, you're never going to get it. And so I need to help our teammates understand that. And then fourthly, I would say it's important for me to lead by example. I feel like the sometimes do as I say and not as I do is something that I've seen and really doesn't impact others well, because teammates feel like, oh, it's good enough for you, but not good enough for me, or not good enough for you and good enough for me. And so I want to understand how my actions impact others. So thinking more broadly about that. And then the last principle is don't be a jerk. I think sometimes as we're going about our lives, there are jerky ways to do things. And if we don't do that, and we just cross all the things that would make us a jerk off the table, then there's so many other things on the table that we can use as tools to lead people. So those are the 5 principles that I use as I'm making my daily decisions as I'm leading teams.
So I know one of the qualities you've emphasized is emotional intelligence, EQ. Why is that so critical in high-stakes environments like emergency management and public safety?
That's an interesting question. So when we talk about high stakes, what I think is most impactful is the reality that other people's lives, property, possessions, family members are at stake. And so the cost of our decision is very high. And if we go into situations as leaders and we see people as cogs or as tools to complete tasks, if we see them as merely means to a desired end state, we lead less effectively. And so kind of when we talked through the principles a little bit earlier, just focusing on the human element really allows us to kind of put a face and a name to a decision. And that's what I think I want all of our, that's not what I think, that's what I want our leaders on our team to be able to do. And I want our teammates to know that if I make a reduction, if I make a change, if I make an adjustment, there's somebody who's going to be impacted by that. And if we think that broadly, through that dimension of leadership, it just makes us more effective and more impactful. And I believe at the end of the day, we'll have teammates that are ready to just, run towards difficulty in order to complete tasks.
So mentorship plays a huge role in professional growth. Have there been any mentors or role models who have significantly shaped your career?
Absolutely. My parents are huge mentors of mine, just considering from the time we were a child, whether it was having a schedule from the time, I think I was from maybe 4th grade to 6th grade, we had a very strict schedule, whether it was coming home from work, doing our chores, reading, homework, things at night. And so striving to insert that discipline into our lives early was something that was very important to my parents. But also they've been married 55 years. So an example of faithfulness, an example of teamwork, an example of working together to solve problems. Those are key integrated or key pieces of their lives that have been integrated into mine. And so with infancy, with primacy, with, the first habits that have been created, my parents have been strong mentors in helping to devise my leadership development, but certainly many other leaders throughout my professional and personal life that have helped me to understand my style.
So shifting to your new role, what is your overall vision kind of broadly for IDHS?
So for IDHS as a whole, what I can say is that the team has been performing well. Right. And when I say team, I don't use the word lightly. There's a cohesion here that exists that now Chief Thacker, former Director Thacker, has really cultivated. And so glad to have Jonathan Whittam continuing as part of that chain of development and cohesion. And he's amazing in his own right. And so having a team is incredible, and then also a team that does well. And so the work is unquestioningly effective. And so as we look at that, I'm just continually impressed by that. So I make no intent to try to make any grave changes to the way things are happening at this point, merely to sit and learn. But really, when I look at my vision for what I want to do as a servant leader of the people at DHS, I really just want to build leaders. And so leveling up our leaders to executive leaders, to helping them understand the totality of their impact. It's not just the 5 people that you saw today. It's not just a decision that's going to impact this grant or this county. We impact nearly 7 million people. and the lives of the people that are closest to us are going to be most closely impacted by our conduct and by our words. And so establishing a way of thought that allows people to think outside of the normal boundaries of where we sit is what I want to do, just to help people expand to understand the gravity of our role and really help them own kind of the executive style of management and leadership that will make us more effective at doing what we do.
For us at IDHS, obviously first responders are the core of public safety. How do you plan to support Indiana's firefighters, EMTs, and emergency managers?
So we clearly have some tactical methods that we're working on, whether it's the hub and spoke method of training, whether it is developing towers across the state, whether it's continuing to grow our relationships with external partners across the state. This weekend, I was at the Mack Center up in Northwest Indiana and saw how ILEA is going to be right across the property from them on land that they donated, and just continuing to pay for instructors and really continue to grow our pocket of people, whether it's helping to serve fire departments that are primarily staffed by volunteers. There's so many opportunities for us to be able to make a difference at the tactical level. But when we look at the strategic level, this new secretariat model that the governor has designed allows us to have a clear opportunity to have a two-way stream of communication with the governor. And so I have the opportunity and responsibility to sit in cabinet meetings, which means that when people bring up issues or concerns, then I have the responsibility to bring them to my boss and to say, hey, sir, I need your help solving this. And so hopefully that communication will allow me to be a catalyst and not a cog. And so when we look at the EMS community, the opportunity to have somebody who is clearly evaluating needs and striving to bring them and has a clear path to the most senior leader on the executive side, I think that's going to be a clear help for us with the new structure.
How do you see IDHS aligning with Governor Braun's broader public safety message?
So Governor Braun's public safety message is one that really focuses on some key points, whether it's increasing rates, recruiting and retention for our police officers, competitive rates for how we execute other roles, decreasing the need at any time possible for professional degrees. But if we can just have professional certifications that allow people to enter the workforce, just those kinds of focuses on public safety, securing and shoring up how we execute our policing roles. I think as he desires to look at a business, to look at the government as a business, it'll help shore up some of the IDHS objectives. But as we fit into his arena, I think our primary task is to keep doing what we're doing, because he has expressed no displeasure with what we're doing, but more it's a matter of him amplifying our abilities to do what we do, to streamline them or to allow us more authority in order to engage the public in a more effective way.
So looking at one of the most substantial public safety issues shaping not just Indiana, but the whole country and the world for that matter, is the issue of cybersecurity. You have a background in this field, and you are now the co-chair of the Indiana Executive Council on Cybersecurity. What should Hoosiers know about the state's effort to protect against cyber attacks?
So cybersecurity is huge. And not just as in a buzzword huge, but the reality of cyber attacks. And so I can go through the tactical methodology of multi-factor authentication, or whether you're looking at shoring up passwords, whether you're looking at ensuring ensuring that your team specifically is prepared in the best way possible on the front end. Those are things that we can talk about all day long. But I think big picture, the reality is that cyber is a domain, whether it's air, land, sea, space, cyberspace. Cyberspace is a domain whereby we have enemies who want to challenge our opportunity to excel. And so it is not one that requires clear, visible kinetic effects. And by that I mean, if another country were to launch a missile at our country, it'd be very clear to see and to track and to find. But cyber's not attributional for the most part. If you are just bouncing content or ones and zeros from one server to another server, it's very difficult to find where that originated from. And so knowing that it is something that's not attributional, knowing it's something that has kinetic effects that are not visible, it's something that you have to be very wary of. So if I could say anything to Hoosiers in regards to cybersecurity, it's take it seriously. And when you have cybersecurity specialists who are employed to work and figure out the most effective way, there might be some tactical issues that become quite annoying, right? Change your password every 20 days, or figure out a new way to to authenticate yourself by something have or are. And so at the end of the day, while it might seem cumbersome, the reality of our enemies grabbing our data, compromising it, stopping communication, or rerouting our communication, or taking our data is something that's very real, but also something that's very scary, because if you think about what they can do with it, there's certainly a lot to be done. So I would just argue that as Hoosiers thinking about cybersecurity, taking it seriously is going to be a really big deal.
So looking at Governor Braun's vision, and I know that in Governor Braun's vision, the Office of School Safety is being created, and school safety is a growing priority. We've seen it at IDHS with the school safety grant that has gotten bigger and bigger over the years. What are some of your goals for improving security in schools across Indiana?
So when I think about the strategic goals for the Office of School Safety, one of the things that is required based on the governor's objectives is continued training. And I think as we look at standing up this office, it's going to be imperative that we allow everybody to be on the same page. That doesn't mean that we don't provide customized training in customized situations, because rural schools and urban schools might have different needs. And we have to do a thorough case study to understand how we can be impactful in that space. So there are several states that are leaders in this area, but what we have found at the very minimum is that while we have a lot of resources, a lot of ideas, a lot of thoughts, a customized approach to Hoosiers is going to be important. And so thankful to have our Chief of Staff, Ashley Presner, on the team. And Ashley is focused on understanding the gaps that we have, finding fills for those gaps, and ultimately allowing people who have a vested interest, but also background, history, talent, knowledge, education in this process to be a part of the team. And so we're looking at Indiana State Police because they're going to be first on the scene. We're looking at the Department of Education because they understand how schools run. We're looking at a couple of different administrators from rural and urban areas so that they can come in and provide their expertise based on their experience. And there are several others who are going to be at the table as well. And so this is not something that I'm seeking to do alone, that IDHS is seeking to do alone, but rather it's a collaborated effort to provide a customized approach to what I agree with what you said is something that is a very huge deal that we need to make sure we are proactive about.
So you're obviously still new in this role, but I'm wondering if we were to check back in a year, what would success look like for you?
Yes, I am new, and I appreciate the grace that everybody has given me. I appreciate the kindness that everybody's brought me in with, whether it's greeting me in the hallway, whether it's saying their name to me more than one time, just so many ways that everybody's been kind in allowing me as a newcomer to come in and strive to integrate, to earn the opportunity to lead here. But if I were to look back in 1 year and say, man, that was a good year, I would probably say it would be a factor of how much our leaders, specifically the leaders that are direct reports, have grown, and how much I've grown as a leader. And so if we are more effective at fighting for our people, if we are more effective at eliminating distractions, if we have continued to build other leaders, whether it's putting people in leadership positions, whether it's training people to move upward with their mobility to get to places where they can have more of an impact, those are clear metrics for me when I look across the spectrum and say, hey, this was a good year.
So you've worn a lot of hats: combat veteran, cybersecurity expert, non-for-profit leader, and now a state leader. What keeps you motivated through all these transitions?
What keeps me motivated? I am really fascinated and find great joy in building teams. I know I've talked a lot about leadership just in the last few minutes here, but it truly is a passion for me because I believe that if you have good leaders, then people are taken care of. And if people are taken care of, the mission will get taken care of. And so looking at our motto, even for the Secretariat, it's people first, safety always. And I want our teammates to know that we're always going to consider our decisions through the lens of people and how it's going to impact people. Safety will always be a concern for us. It's always going to get done. No one's going to look at work and is going to sit down at their desk and do work that doesn't relate to safety because it's our task and it's always going to be there. But sometimes we neglect as leaders the reality of the human element. And so people first, safety always is the model we want to go with. And so when you ask the question about what motivates me, it's the reality that we have the opportunity to make things better and people better and make a difference in our world. If I lead more effectively today, then that means tomorrow there's an opportunity for the world to be different and the world to be better. And that's ultimately what I believe I'm here to do.
So before we wrap up, I thought it'd be fun if we have a little rapid fire questions.
Absolutely.
So our listeners can get to know you better. So first, hometown.
Born in Long Beach, California.
Favorite food?
My favorite food is tacos, and I am intending to visit all 92 counties between me and the other two deputy directors, Jonathan Whittam and Ashley Presner. And so if I'm in your space, please, I would love to catch up for lunch over tacos. If you tell me your favorite taco spot and we get the chance to hang out there, I would love it.
Favorite sport?
To play basketball, to watch football.
Special interests?
Aviation.
What did you fly in the military? What do you like to fly?
So in the Air Force, I started out flying Diamond DA-20s. They're katanas, probably 150 horsepower, something like that. That's what I got my private pilot license on. And then I started flying twin engine jets, T-37, and that's where I did a lot of aerobatics and formation flying. And then transitioned to the C-12, which is a King Air Beechcraft 200 twin engine turboprop, 10-seater. And then now I fly a small 4-seater Cessna 172, 145 horsepower. His name is Zev. He just finished his annual down in Alabama. And so look forward to having him back up here in Northwest Indiana soon.
Favorite musical?
Hamilton.
Your parents' history?
So mom was born and raised in the Philippines. She grew up there till she was 19. My dad met her when he was stationed there, and he had gotten word that his next assignment was Vietnam. Met my mom at a wedding that she wasn't supposed to be at, and he remembers seeing her walk down a stairwell and was like, "That's the woman I'm going to marry." He called his commander and said, "Hey, sir, do you mind if I stay here one more month? I found the woman I'm going to marry." And his commander said, "Sure." So he stayed a month in the Philippines extra. My mom and her family ended up moving to the United States, and because she had dual citizenship, and he wrote her letters from Vietnam, and then when she came back, they got married, and 6 kids later, they had me.
Your hobby?
If I am not at work, you can find me, I don't know, waiting for Netflix to say, "Jen, are you still watching?"
Fair. If you could choose a job, like a wish list job, what would it be?
IDHS executive director. But
Fair.
If not that, I'd love to be an ambassador one day.
If you had to have a superpower you would pick, what would it be?
Ooh, I would love to teleport. Transportation takes a lot of time. And so if I could just get somewhere very quickly, that would be helpful to me.
Is there one place that you most want to travel?
So the most beautiful country in the world is Ireland. Okay. My favorite country in the world is Japan. When I was little, my parents put us in Japanese school. So I studied Japanese from 2nd grade to 10th grade. Okay. And I minored in it in college. And so I love the language. I love the history. I love the culture. I love the people. I visited all 7 continents. And so, but Japan by far is my favorite country.
Favorite type of music?
Ooh, neo soul.
Neo soul.
I'm a huge fan of Stevie Wonder. Okay. And Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Most often used phrase or word?
Let's go! All day long.
And then one thing people would be surprised to know about you?
I am not competitive.
Okay.
Legit. I will master trash talk, but I could care less. If it's a 2nd place trophy or a 30th place trophy or a 1st place trophy, I really don't care.
So this has been a great conversation.
Yeah, thank you.
I want to thank you for sharing your insights, and we look forward to seeing the impact of your leadership on IDHS.
Thank you so much. Appreciate the time.
That wraps up this episode of Hoosier Homeland. Thank you so much to Secretary Green for taking the time to share her insight, experiences, and vision for public safety in Indiana. Her leadership is rooted in service, strategy, and the deep commitment to the people of this state. This podcast has been a production of the Indiana Department of Homeland Security. If you enjoyed this episode, our complete catalog can be found on Spotify, YouTube, and Pandora. To listen to previous episodes, go to on.in.gov/Hoosier Homeland. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Indiana DHS. We will see you in the next episode. Until then, Stay safe, stay prepared, and take control of your safety.